trigonometric functions. After watching this video, I will be able to use a calculator and the inverse of trigonometric functions to find degree measures. So in our previous lessons, we were talking about trigonometric ratios where we would be given a triangle, let's say 3, 4, 5, and we wanted to find the angle measures. So we would use opposite over hypotenuse. So you could say sine of my angle x is equal to 4 over 5. And you would have this ratio. So the reason we were doing that is because our end goal is to find what x is, to find the angle measure without having to actually measure it with a protractor or something. So when we have sine of x, we need some function to kind of get rid of that sign, to reverse it, to do the opposite. So when we have an equation, we always do the opposite so we can get x by itself. The opposite of sine or any trig function would be its inverse. And on your calculator, you will see it with a -1 on top. So this means inverse sine and its opposite. So literally what you will see in an equation, what's actually happening is if we have sine of x is equal to 4 over 5, well, we would do the inverse sign. So you will say sine of -1, and what you do on one side, you do on the other. And then we would have our equation. Sine of x equals 4 over 5. So because we have inverse sine and sine, those two cancel out, and I'm just left with x, which is my goal. But now I have this sine inverse of 4 over 5. That's just the button we would press on our calculator when solving. So in this example, we have tan of b, or tangent of b. And we are already given a decimal, meaning this is just familiarizing ourselves with the calculator. It's doing that step for us. So because of its tangent, I'm going to do the inverse of tangent. So tangent -1 means inverse of tangent. And technically what's happening is what I do on one side, I do on the other. So we have inverse tangent of my ratio or decimal, fraction, whatever word you want to use. So technically, b is left by itself, and my angle measure would be whatever my calculator tells me after clicking those buttons. So when I pull up my graphing calculator, I know that I want the inverse. So depending on the calculator you use, you might have to move around. So I went from main on my decimals calculator to function, and I'm doing tangent, so inverse of, going back to main, 0.6009, close parentheses, and you're going to get some decimal. So I'm going to round that to the nearest degree. So this 31 point something means 31 degrees approximately. So my answer will be approximately 31 degrees. So that's telling me that the angle measure for my triangle is 31 degrees without me having to measure it with a protractor. So once I actually have the fraction, I probably won't need to actually write the equation because I know I'm going to have inverse. So y is going to equal the inverse of sine and then my decimal, which is 0.1045. I would go to my calculator. I would find the inverse sine button and then 0.106, messed up, 0.45 was it? Which will give me 5.99, etc. So rounding to the nearest degrees, it would be 0.6 degrees. So y would equal approximately 6 degrees. So now you try, find the angle measure to the nearest degree we are using cosine, so we would find the degree measure using inverse cosine. So using my inverse cosine, that will cancel out the original cosine, so I can be left with my variable z. And then I am going to plug this into my calculator. Make sure that whatever calculator you're using is in degree mode, otherwise your answer will be wrong. So when I pull up my scientific calculator, inverse cosine of my decimal, .8910, and then rounding to the nearest degree, so I get 27.00 and then a large decimal, so rounded to the nearest degree would be 27 degrees. So my correct answer would be B.